Captain Park Jimin stood on the bridge of the Iron Phoenix and watched the stars through the massive viewing screen. The ship was huge, bigger than most cities back on Earth, and it carried enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the quiet efficiency that came from years of training and months of deep space patrol. The Iron Phoenix was the flagship of the Terran Defense Fleet, one of 12 massive dreadnoughts that protected human space from whatever dangers might lurk in the dark between stars. Park had commanded her for 3 years now, and in that time they had seen pirates, asteroid miners, and the occasional lost colony ship, but nothing that really tested their capabilities. Dr. Lee Hyeri looked up from her communications console, with a frown on her face. She was the ship's chief communications officer and xenobiologist, though the second part of her job had been mostly theoretical until now. Humanity had never encountered another intelligent species, despite decades of searching and hoping. "Captain," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge, "I'm picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Park turned toward her station. "Define strange, Doctor." "It's a transmission of some kind, but not like anything in our databases. The signal strength suggests it's coming from outside. Human space, maybe 15 light years out. The pattern is complex, mathematical, but there's something else mixed in with it." Lieutenant Commander Choi Do-hyun looked up from his tactical station. He was young for his rank, but Park trusted his judgment completely. Could it be a natural phenomenon? Pulsar emissions or stellar interference? Hyeri shook her head. "No, this is definitely artificial. The mathematical patterns are too precise, too ordered. But there's something emotional about it, too, if that makes sense. Like whoever sent it was desperate." Park felt his pulse quicken. First contact with an alien species was something every officer in the fleet dreamed about and feared in equal measure. The protocols were clear, but protocols were written by people who had never actually faced the unknown. "Can you decode it?" he asked. "I'm trying, but it's going to take time. The mathematical base seems to be different from ours, and the encoding is incredibly sophisticated. Whoever sent this is at least as advanced as we are, maybe more so." The bridge doors opened. With a soft hiss, and Admiral Kim Tae-hyung stepped through. He was older than Park, with gray hair and the kind of steady presence that came from 30 years in space. He had been visiting the Iron Phoenix for routine fleet exercises when the signal came in. "Report," he said simply. Park quickly briefed him on the situation while Hyeri continued working at her station. The Admiral listened without interruption, his face giving nothing away. When Park finished, Kim moved to stand behind Hyeri's console. "How long to decode?" he asked. "Maybe 6 hours, maybe 12. It depends on how different their mathematical concepts are from ours. I'm running it through every algorithm we have." Kim nodded. "Do it, and put the fleet on alert status yellow. If this is first contact, I want us ready for anything." The next few hours passed slowly. Park divided his attention between normal ship operations and the decoding effort. Around them, the rest of the fleet had spread out in a defensive formation, their sensors sweeping space for any sign of approaching ships. Engineer Kang Nayeon reported that all systems were operating at peak efficiency, while Sergeant Major Yoon Min-ho confirmed that the Marine complement was ready for deployment if needed. Finally, just after the start of the night watch, Hyeri's console chimed with success. "I've got it," she announced, her voice tight with excitement and fear. The translation algorithm finally broke through the encoding. Park and Admiral Kim hurried to her station as she activated the main display. The bridge crew fell silent. As an image appeared on the screen, fuzzy at first, but gradually resolving into something recognizable yet alien. The being on the screen was beautiful in an otherworldly way. Its body seemed to be made of living crystal, faceted and reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. When it spoke, the sound was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, but the translation software converted its words into something humans could understand. "This is Keeper Ashanti of the 4th Crystal City. We are under attack by the Void Hunters. Our worlds are dying. Our people are being consumed. We have sent this message to every star in the sky, hoping someone, anyone, will hear us and help. We do not know if other life exists beyond our system, but if you can understand this, please know that we are a peaceful people. We have never known war. We have no weapons, no defenses. The Void Hunters came from the dark between stars 3 days ago. They are destroying everything we have built over 10,000 years of civilization. If you receive this message and you have the power to help, please come quickly. We do not have much time left. The message ended, but the crystal being's image remained frozen on the screen. The bridge was completely silent, except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Park felt his mouth go dry as the implications sank in. 3 days, Admiral Kim said quietly. The message is 3 days old. Choi's fingers flew over his tactical console. I'm detecting the source system now. It's called the Ashanti system in our star charts, though obviously we didn't know it. Was inhabited. 15.7 light years from our current position. If we push the drives to maximum, we could be there in 18 hours. What about these Void Hunters? Park asked. Do we have any data on them? Hieri was already searching through the databases. Nothing in our files. The name suggests they're nomadic, possibly predatory. Based on the Ashanti's description, they're a species that feeds on other civilizations. Kim stared at the frozen image of the crystal being. A peaceful species with no concept of war, facing an enemy that consumes entire civilizations. He was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Orders from Earth Command would take weeks to arrive. By then, these Ashanti will be dead. Sir, Choi said carefully, we don't know the size of the enemy force. We don't know their capabilities. This could be a trap, or we could be walking into a battle we can't win. Park nodded. The tactical situation is completely unknown. We'd be going in blind against an enemy that's already defeated an entire star system. Admiral Kim turned away from the screen and looked around the bridge. Park could see him weighing options, considering the risks, thinking about the consequences of action versus inaction. Finally, he turned back to the image of the crystal being. 30 years ago, when I was a young officer like you, Captain Park, I read about something called the Prime Directive in an old science fiction story. The idea was that advanced civilizations should never interfere in the affairs of less developed ones. It sounded wise at the time. He paused, still looking at the screen. But that story was written by humans who had never met another intelligent species. It was written by people who didn't have to watch someone else's civilization die while they had the power to help. He turned to face Park directly. We are the Terran Defense Fleet. Our job is to defend against threats to human civilization. But humanity has always been more than just another species trying to survive. We've always been the ones who help, who protect, who stand between the innocent and the monsters. Park felt something stir in his chest. A mixture of pride and fear, and determination that he recognized from his academy days. Orders, sir? Admiral Kim's voice carried across the bridge with absolute authority. Signal the fleet. All ships are to prepare for immediate jump to hyperspace. We're going to the Ashanti system, and we're going to stop these Void Hunters. He paused, looking around at the bridge crew. Today, the galaxy is about to learn something important about humanity. We don't abandon people to monsters. The human fleet moved with a speed and efficiency that would have impressed any military observer in the galaxy. Within 2 hours of Admiral Kim's order, 12 massive dreadnoughts and their escort vessels were racing through hyperspace toward the Ashanti system. The Iron Phoenix led the formation, its hull gleaming under the strange lights of hyperspace as it cut through dimensions that normal matter was never meant to enter. Captain Park stood in the ship's main briefing room, surrounded by holographic displays showing ship positions, tactical readouts, and everything they knew about their destination. Around the table sat his senior officers, while similar meetings were taking place on every ship in the fleet through quantum communication links. Engineer Kang Nayeon pulled up a schematic of the Iron Phoenix on the main display. We've pushed the hyperspace drives beyond their normal operating parameters, she reported. All ships are running at 115% of standard cruise speed. We'll reach the Ashanti system in 16 hours instead of 18. What's the cost? Admiral Kim asked. We'll need to perform maintenance on the drive cores when this is over, but they'll hold together for now. The bigger concern is our weapons systems. We're carrying a full load of kinetic rounds, plasma charges, and nuclear missiles, but we don't know how long this fight will last or what we'll be facing. Lieutenant Commander Choi activated another display showing what little they knew about their enemy. Based on the Ashanti's description, the Void Hunters are a nomadic species that feeds on other civilizations. They use biomechanical technology, which suggests they might be part machine, part living organism. Beyond that, we're operating blind. Dr. Lee had been working non-stop since the first message, trying to decode more transmissions from the Ashanti system. I've picked up fragments of additional messages, she said, her voice tired but determined. The Ashanti have been broadcasting continuously, but the signals are getting weaker. From what I can translate, they've lost 4 of their 5 inhabited worlds. The last planet, their homeworld, is still fighting, but barely. Park studied the tactical display showing their projected arrival point. What do we know about the Ashanti themselves? Are they capable of any kind of resistance? They're a crystalline species that appears to have evolved on a world with very stable conditions, Lee explained. Their entire civilization is built around art, philosophy, and scientific advancement. They've never developed weapons or military technology because they've never needed them. They don't even have a concept of war as we understand it. Sergeant Major Yoon spoke up from the back of the room. So they're completely helpless against any kind of military force? Essentially, yes. They're like scholars and artists facing a pack of wolves. Admiral Kim stood and walked to the display showing the fleet formation. Let's talk about what we're bringing to this fight. Captain Park, give me our force composition. Park activated the fleet display. 12 dreadnoughts, each carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. 36 heavy cruisers with advanced shielding and long-range weapons. 60 destroyers for close combat and escort duties. 40 frigates for reconnaissance and support. Total crew complement of just over 200,000, including 30,000 Marines equipped for boarding actions and ground combat. And every single one of those crew members, Kim added, comes from a planet that spent 4 billion years trying to kill everything that lived on it. Earth is what we call a death world, gentlemen. We evolved in an environment where everything from the weather to the bacteria wanted us dead. We survived ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, asteroid impacts, and predators that would give nightmares to most species. Engineer Kang nodded grimly. Our ships reflect that heritage. Where most species build for efficiency and elegance, we build for survival. Our hulls can take damage that would destroy other vessels. Our weapons are designed to kill things that are bigger and stronger than we are. Our systems have backup systems that have backup systems. The Void Hunters are about to learn something, Admiral Kim continued. When you threaten innocent people, you don't just face their protectors. You face everything that made those protectors what they are. You face the fury of a species that learned to fight by fighting their own planet. Choi pulled up a tactical projection of the Ashanti system. We'll drop out of hyperspace here, at the edge of the system. That gives us time to assess the situation before we commit to battle. If the enemy force is too large, we can withdraw and call for reinforcements. No, Admiral Kim said firmly. There won't be time for reinforcements. If we can't stop them, no one can. The Ashanti will be dead, and the Void Hunters will move on to their next target. Park felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What's our primary objective? Rescue the surviving Ashanti or destroy the Void Hunters? Both. We save who we can, and we make sure these Void Hunters never threaten anyone again. Dr. Lee looked up from her console. I'm still receiving fragments of transmissions from the Ashanti homeworld. They're asking if anyone heard their call for help. They're wondering if they're truly alone in the universe. The briefing room fell, silent. Park thought about what it would be like to face extinction while calling out to an empty galaxy, hoping against hope that someone would answer. They're not alone, Admiral Kim said quietly. Signal all ships. I want every department, head to understand what we're doing and why. We're not going to save one species today. We're going to show the entire galaxy what humanity stands for. The next 14 hours passed in final preparations. Throughout the fleet, crew members checked weapons, ran diagnostics on critical systems, and prepared for the unknown. In the Iron Phoenix's Marine Bay, Sergeant Major Yoon briefed his troops on everything they knew about the Void Hunters, which wasn't much. We're dealing with biomechanical entities, he told the assembled Marines. They might be part organic, part machine, or something else entirely. What we do know is that they consume other species, possibly for food, possibly for knowledge. Either way, they're a threat to everything we're sworn to protect. The Marines listened intently, They were volunteers all, men and women who had signed up to defend humanity against whatever threats might emerge from the dark. Now they were about to face something that had destroyed an entire civilization. Remember your training, Yoon continued. We're human beings. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We survived by being tougher, smarter, and more stubborn than anything else on our planet. These void hunters think they're apex predators. Today they're going to learn what a real apex predator looks like. In the engineering sections, Kang and her teams made final adjustments to the ship's systems. They rerouted power conduits to maximize weapons efficiency, prepared emergency repair protocols, and double-checked every system that might mean the difference between victory and death. On the bridge, Dr. Lee continued monitoring transmissions from the Ashanti system. The signals were getting weaker, more desperate. She could hear the fear in the alien voices, even through the translation software. They're still fighting, she reported to Park. Somehow they're still holding out. Park nodded. Then we're not too late. The final hour crawled by like a week. Throughout the fleet, crews stood at battle stations. Weapons were charged, and every eye was on the countdown timer that marked their arrival at the Ashanti system. When the timer reached 0, 12 massive human dreadnoughts and their escorts dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of an alien star system. What they saw there would change the course of galactic history forever. 4 worlds hung dead in space, their surfaces scarred and lifeless. Massive biomechanical constructs floated among the wreckage of what had once been a thriving civilization. And around the 5th planet, the final battle for the survival of an entire species was reaching its conclusion. Admiral Kim's voice echoed across every ship in the fleet as sensors revealed the scope of the destruction and the size of the enemy force they faced. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Today we write a new chapter in human history. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the innocent. All vessels advance to attack formation. Let's go save a civilization. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace like a pack of wolves entering a slaughterhouse. Captain Park stared at the main display, taking in the scope of destruction that surrounded them. 4 dead worlds orbited their star like tombstones, their surfaces blackened and scarred by weapons that had torn apart entire continents. Among the wreckage of planets floated things that defied easy description. The Void Hunters' ships were massive biomechanical constructs that looked like they had grown rather than been built. Some resembled enormous insects with hulls of living, metal and organic components that pulsed with alien energy. Others were more abstract, twisted geometric shapes that seemed to bend space around them in ways that hurt to look at. "Sensor report," Admiral Kim commanded. Lieutenant Commander Choi's voice was steady despite what they were seeing. "I count 47 enemy vessels, ranging from frigate-sized scouts to something that registers as almost moon-sized. The largest construct appears to be their command ship. It's positioned in orbit around the 5th planet where the Ashanti are still transmitting." Dr. Lee looked up from her communications console, her face pale. "I'm picking up the Ashanti transmissions now. They're broadcasting from underground shelters across their homeworld. The signals are weak, and I can hear panic in their voices. They know they don't have much time left." Park studied the tactical display. The enemy force was massive, easily 3 times the size of their own fleet. Under normal circumstances, any sane commander would withdraw and call for reinforcements. But these weren't normal circumstances, and humanity had never been particularly sane when it came to protecting others. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim," the Admiral's voice echoed across the fleet. "We are outnumbered and outgunned. The enemy has already destroyed 4 worlds and is in the process of finishing off the 5th. By any rational calculation, we should retreat." He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried the weight of humanity's entire history. "But we are not rational. We are human. We are the children of a world that never stopped trying to kill us. And we learned long ago that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight things bigger than yourself." The Iron Phoenix led the charge as the human fleet accelerated toward the enemy formation. Park felt the familiar vibration of the ship's massive engines pushing them to combat speed. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency that came from years of training and the absolute certainty that they were doing the right thing. "Contact in 30 seconds, Choi reported. "Enemy vessels are beginning to react to our presence." The Void Hunters had clearly not expected resistance. Their ships had been spread out across the system, focusing on the final destruction of the Ashanti homeworld. Now they scrambled to form defensive positions as the human fleet bore down on them like an avalanche. "Fire," Admiral Kim commanded. The first salvo from the human fleet lit up space like a newborn star. Kinetic rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds, followed by plasma charges and guided missiles. The Iron Phoenix's main guns fired in sequence, each shot carrying enough kinetic energy to crack a mountain. The Void Hunter ships were tough, but they had never faced weapons designed by a species that had spent its entire evolution learning to kill things bigger and stronger than themselves. Human weapons were not elegant or sophisticated. They were simply devastating. Where other species might use precision strikes and tactical finesse, humans preferred overwhelming firepower applied with surgical precision. The first enemy ships to die were the smaller scouts. They had spread out to monitor the approaches to the system and found themselves isolated when the human fleet arrived. Destroyer squadrons led by Captain Park's fellow officers tore through them with methodical efficiency, using pack tactics that had been refined through centuries of naval warfare. "Enemy command ship is moving," Choi reported. "It's repositioning to bring its main weapons to bear on us." Park watched the massive biomechanical construct begin its ponderous turn. It was the size of a small moon, covered in weapon ports and organic growths that pulsed with malevolent energy. Around it, smaller Void Hunter ships formed a protective screen. "Take us in," Admiral Kim ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the command vessel. We cut off the head. The body dies." The Iron Phoenix and 5 other dreadnoughts broke away from the main fleet and charged directly at the enemy command ship. It was a tactic that would have seemed like suicide to most species, but humans had long ago learned that sometimes the only way through was straight ahead. The enemy returned fire with weapons that defied human understanding. Energy beams that seemed to eat light itself lanced out from the biomechanical ships, while projectiles that looked like living things hurtled toward the human vessels. The Iron Phoenix's shields flared as alien weapons hammered against them, but the ship pressed forward. Engineer Kang's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Shields at 60% and holding. I'm rerouting power from non-essential systems to weapons and propulsion." Park felt the ship shudder as another enemy salvo struck home. On the tactical display, he could see one of their escort cruisers take a direct hit from something that looked like a living missile. The ship's hull cracked open like an egg, venting atmosphere and crew into the vacuum of space. "Continue the attack," Admiral Kim commanded, his voice steady despite the carnage around them. "All ships, maintain formation and keep firing." The human fleet pressed their assault with a determination that clearly shocked their enemies. Where the Void Hunters expected their opponents to break and run after taking casualties, the human ships simply absorbed the damage and kept coming. When the destroyer Busan lost its main engines, it continued firing with backup power until its ammunition was exhausted. When the cruiser Seoul's Bridge was destroyed, the engineering crew took control and flew the ship into a ramming attack against an enemy frigate. Dr. Lee's console chimed with an incoming transmission. "Captain, I'm receiving a signal from the Ashanti homeworld. They can see our ships in orbit, and they're asking who we are." "Can you translate our response?" Park asked. "I think so. The translation protocols have adapted to their language patterns." Park thought for a moment, then spoke clearly into the communications pickup. "Tell them, we are humans from the planet Earth. Tell them we heard their call for help, and we came as fast as we could. Tell them they are not alone anymore." Lee's fingers flew over her console as she translated the message and broadcast it to the planet below. A few moments later, her console chimed again with the response. "They're saying thank you," she reported, tears streaming down her face. "They're saying they never believed anyone would come." The battle continued to rage around the 5th planet, as human and Void Hunter ships locked in deadly combat. The enemy had superior numbers, but they were discovering that humans fought with a ferocity that their previous victims had never shown. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Human crews that should have surrendered kept firing. Human tactics that should have failed somehow worked through sheer bloody-minded determination. Lieutenant Commander Choi called out over the sound of weapons fire. "The enemy command ship is taking heavy damage. I'm reading massive structural failures across its forward sections." Park could see it on the main display. The moon-sized biomechanical construct was staggering under the concentrated fire of 6 human dreadnoughts. Its organic components were burning with alien fire while its mechanical system sparked and failed. But it was still fighting, its massive weapons continuing to pour fire into the human fleet. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel's central core," Admiral Kim ordered. "Everything we have, everything we can throw at it." The Iron Phoenix and its sister ships unleashed a barrage that lit up the entire system. Nuclear missiles detonated against alien hull plating, while kinetic rounds punched through armor that had seemed impervious. Plasma charges melted through biomechanical components that writhed and died under the assault. Sergeant Major Yoon's voice came over the intercom from the Marine Bay. "Captain, request permission to launch boarding pods. If that thing has survivors, we need to make sure they don't regroup." Park looked at Admiral Kim, who nodded grimly. "Permission granted, Sergeant Major. Take your Marines and finish this." As boarding pods launched from the human ships toward the dying command vessel, Dr. Lee picked up another transmission from the planet below. This time, the Ashanti voices carried something they hadn't heard before: hope. "They're saying the Void Hunter ground forces are withdrawing," she reported. "They're retreating to their ships. The Ashanti can't believe it, but the enemy is actually running away." Park watched the tactical display as Void Hunter vessels throughout the system began breaking off from combat and heading for the outer system at maximum speed. For the first time in their species' history, the Void Hunters were retreating from a battle. Admiral Kim's voice carried across the fleet with quiet satisfaction. "All ships, pursue and destroy. We don't let them escape to threaten someone else." The pursuit lasted for 6 hours as human ships chased fleeing Void Hunters across the Ashanti system. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Iron Phoenix, watching his tactical display track the running battle. 3 human dreadnoughts had been destroyed in the main engagement, along with dozens of smaller vessels. The Iron Phoenix herself had taken severe damage, her hull scarred by alien weapons, and half her crew either dead or wounded, but they were winning. Admiral Kim coordinated the fleet pursuit from his command center, his voice steady despite the casualties they had taken. "All ships maintain pursuit. Do not let any enemy vessel escape this system." Lieutenant Commander Choi worked frantically at his damaged console, trying to track the scattered Void Hunter ships as they fled toward the outer system. "I count 31 enemy vessels still functional and running. Most of them are badly damaged, but they're still dangerous." Engineer Kang reported from the engine room over a communications link that crackled with static. "Captain, I've got the hyperspace drive back online, but our main weapons are operating at 40% efficiency. We can still fight, but we need time for repairs." Dr. Lee looked up from her console with excitement in her voice. "Captain, I'm receiving transmissions from Ashanti survivors across their homeworld. They're coming out of their shelters. The Void Hunter ground forces have completely withdrawn." Park felt a mixture of relief and determination. They had saved the Ashanti homeworld, but the job wasn't finished. As long as any Void Hunters escaped, they could regroup and attack again, either here or somewhere else. On the main display, he watched the largest group of fleeing enemies heading toward the system's edge. They were damaged, but still dangerous, and they had a head start on the pursuing human ships. "Admiral," Park said into his communicator, "the Iron Phoenix can still fight. Request permission to intercept the main enemy group before they reach hyperspace." "Negative, Captain. Your ship has taken too much damage. Fall back and assist with rescue operations." Park looked around his battered bridge. Half the control stations were dark. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow, and he could hear the sound of damage control teams working in the corridors outside. Kim was right, the Iron Phoenix should withdraw. But Park thought about the Ashanti voices Dr. Lee had been translating, the desperate hope of a species that had believed they were alone in the universe. He thought about what would happen if the Void Hunters escaped and attacked another defenseless world. "Admiral, the Iron Phoenix can make one more attack run. If we can damage their engines, the rest of the fleet can finish them." There was a long pause before Kim's voice came back over the communicator. "Very well, Captain. One attack run, then you withdraw for repairs." Park turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare for final attack. Engineering, give me everything you can. Weapons, load our remaining heavy rounds. We're going to end this." The Iron Phoenix accelerated toward the fleeing Void Hunters, her damaged engines pushing her to maximum speed. On the tactical display, Park could see the enemy ships growing larger as the distance closed. They had detected the pursuit and were returning fire, but their weapons were weakened by damage from the earlier battle. "Contact in 60 seconds, Choi reported. Park activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. In 1 minute, we're going to hit the enemy with everything we have left. After that, this fight is over. The Ashanti will be safe, and the galaxy will know that the Void Hunters can be stopped." The Iron Phoenix shuddered as enemy fire struck her forward shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems overloaded and failed. But the ship kept coming, closing the distance with mechanical determination. 30 seconds to weapons range, Choi announced. Park could see the enemy ships clearly now on the main display. They were alien and terrible, biomechanical horrors that looked like they had been designed by nightmares. But they were also damaged, bleeding alien fluids into space and trailing debris from their previous encounters with human weapons. 15 seconds. Park gripped the command chair as the ship bucked under another enemy salvo. On his console, he could see that they were down to their last nuclear missiles and a handful of kinetic rounds. "Fire," he commanded. The Iron Phoenix's remaining weapons unleashed their final barrage at point-blank range. Nuclear fire bloomed between the ships as missiles detonated against alien hulls. Kinetic rounds punched through armor that had already been weakened by previous hits. The enemy formation broke apart as ships tumbled out of control or exploded in brilliant flashes of alien fire, but the Iron Phoenix paid a price for her attack. Enemy weapons hammered her hull as she passed through their formation, and Park felt the ship shudder as something vital gave way deep in her structure. Engineer Kang's voice came over the intercom, tight with pain. "Captain, we've lost main power. I'm running on backup systems, but they won't last long. And sir, we've lost the hyperspace drive. We're not going anywhere fast." Park looked at the tactical display and saw that their attack had succeeded. The main group of Void Hunter ships was scattered and crippled, easy prey for the pursuing human fleet. But the Iron Phoenix was dead in space, drifting among the wreckage of both fleets. "Dr. Lee," signaled the Admiral. "Tell him the Iron Phoenix has completed her mission but requires immediate assistance." Lee's console crackled as she transmitted the message. A few minutes later, Admiral Kim's voice came back over the communicator. "Help is on the way, Captain. The cruiser Incheon is moving to assist you." Over the next hour, Park watched from his crippled bridge as the rest of the human fleet finished off the scattered Void Hunter survivors. One by one, the alien ships were hunted down and destroyed until no trace of the invasion force remained except debris and radiation. Dr. Lee had been monitoring communications from the Ashanti homeworld throughout the final battle. "Captain, the Ashanti leaders want to speak with us. They're asking to meet with our representatives." Park looked around his damaged bridge and laughed, despite everything. "Tell them we'll be happy to meet with them, but they'll have to give us a few hours to make ourselves presentable." As rescue ships arrived to assist the Iron Phoenix, Sergeant Major Yoon reported in from the boarding action on the destroyed Void Hunter command ship. "Captain, we've secured the enemy vessel. Most of it was destroyed in the attack, but we've recovered some interesting technology and what looks like data storage devices." "Any survivors?" Park asked. "No, sir. The Void Hunters appear to be some kind of biomechanical hybrid, but they don't survive when their ships are destroyed. We found evidence that they were consuming Ashanti prisoners, though. These things really were trying to eat an entire civilization." Park felt a cold anger at that news. The Void Hunters hadn't just been invaders, they had been predators in the most literal sense. The galaxy was a better place with them gone. Admiral Kim's voice came over the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. The Ashanti system is secure. All Void Hunter vessels have been destroyed. Casualty reports are coming in now, and while we've paid a heavy price, we've accomplished something unprecedented." Park listened to the Admiral's words while watching rescue shuttles dock with his ship. They had lost thousands of good people today, and ships that had taken years to build. But they had also saved an entire species and sent a message that would echo across the galaxy. "The Ashanti have invited us to send representatives to their homeworld," Kim continued. "Captain Park, since the Iron Phoenix struck the final blow against the enemy command ship, I'm assigning you to lead the diplomatic contact team." Park looked around his battered bridge and smiled. "Understood, Admiral." The Iron Phoenix will be honored to represent humanity in first contact with our new allies. Dr. Lee looked up from her console with tears in her eyes. Captain, I'm receiving messages from across the Ashanti homeworld. They're calling us heroes. They're saying we're the answer to prayers they didn't even know they were making. Outside the bridge windows, Park could see the Ashanti homeworld turning slowly in space. It was a beautiful blue and green sphere, scarred by the recent battle but still alive, still home to millions of crystalline beings who would see another sunrise because humans had decided to answer a call for help. The Iron Phoenix might be damaged, but she had done her job. The galaxy would never be the same. Captain Park stood in the main hangar bay of the Iron Phoenix, watching as Ashanti representatives boarded his ship for the first formal diplomatic meeting between their species. The crystalline beings moved with a grace that seemed almost magical, their faceted bodies reflecting the hangar lights in patterns that created tiny rainbows on the metal walls. The lead Ashanti, who had introduced himself as Keeper Ashanti of the Fourth Crystal City, approached Park with something that might have been reverence. When he spoke, his voice was like wind chimes, but Dr. Lee's translation equipment converted his words into something humans could understand. Captain Park of the vessel Iron Phoenix, the Keeper said, we welcome you to our world with hearts full of gratitude that our language cannot properly express. You and your people have saved us from extinction. Park felt awkward in the face of such obvious emotion. He had done his job, followed his orders, and tried to do what was right. The idea that this made him some kind of hero was uncomfortable. Keeper Ashanti, he replied, we did what anyone should do when innocent people are threatened. We're just glad we arrived in time to help. The Ashanti delegation exchanged what looked like surprised glances. Dr. Lee, who had been studying their body language and communication patterns, leaned over to whisper in Park's ear. Captain, I think they're amazed that we see this as normal behavior. From what I can tell, their concept of different species helping each other is completely new. Admiral Kim joined the group, moving carefully on a walking stick that he now needed thanks to injuries sustained when his flagship had taken a direct hit during the battle. Keeper Ashanti, we're honored to meet with you and your people. We understand that you've been alone in the galaxy for a very long time. Admiral Kim, the Keeper replied, we have been broadcasting into space for over 1,000 of your years, hoping to contact other intelligent life. In all that time, you are the first to respond. We had begun to believe we were truly alone. Engineer Kang, who had been working around the clock to repair the Iron Phoenix, approached the group with a data pad in her hands. Keeper, we've been analyzing the wreckage of the Void Hunter ships. We found evidence that they've attacked dozens of star systems over the past century. How many other species have they destroyed? The Keeper's crystalline form seemed to dim with sadness. We do not know. The Void Hunters spoke of many conquests, many worlds consumed. We fear that entire civilizations have been lost to their hunger. Lieutenant Commander Choi looked up from a tactical display he had been studying. Sir, we are receiving communications from ships across the galaxy. Word of our victory over the Void Hunters is spreading fast. Dozens of species are requesting contact with us. Admiral Kim nodded thoughtfully. How many of these requests are genuine diplomatic overtures, and how many are intelligence gathering? Hard to say, sir. Some seem friendly, but others are definitely trying to assess our military capabilities. The Galactic Hegemony Council has demanded that we appear before them to explain our actions. Dr. Lee had been monitoring galactic communication channels since the battle ended. Admiral, the response across the galaxy is mixed. Some species are calling us heroes and liberators. Others are worried about what they call aggressive Deathworld species and are demanding that we be contained. Park felt a familiar anger rising in his chest. Contained? We just saved an entire civilization from extinction and they want to contain us? Keeper Ashanti spoke up, his voice carrying what sounded like determination despite its musical quality. Captain Park, Admiral Kim, if I may speak on behalf of my people, we have spent the last few days learning about your species and your world. We understand now why you were able to do what no one else would do. What do you mean? Admiral Kim asked. Your planet Earth is what you call a death world. Everything about your evolution was shaped by struggle, by the need to survive against impossible odds. You developed not just intelligence, but courage, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice for others. These are not common traits in the galaxy. The Keeper moved to a viewport where they could see the Ashanti homeworld turning slowly in space. Most species in the galaxy evolved on stable, peaceful worlds. They developed advanced technology and sophisticated cultures, but they never learned to fight for survival the way you did. When faced with something like the Void Hunters, they surrender or flee because they cannot imagine any other response. Sergeant Major Yoon joined the group, still wearing his combat armor despite the formal nature of the meeting. Keeper, what you're saying is that most alien species are soft. Not soft, Sergeant Major, simply different. They never had to become what you became in order to survive. Admiral Kim walked to the viewport and looked down at the planet below. So what happens now? Do we go before this Galactic Council and explain ourselves? Do we try to convince them that we're not a threat? Dr. Lee activated her datapad and showed them the communication logs she had been analyzing. Actually, sir, I think we might have more options than that. I've been in contact with representatives from 17 different species, and they're all asking the same question. Would we be willing to help them if they face a similar threat? They want us to be their protectors? Park asked. More than that. They want to form some kind of alliance with us. They're offering technology, resources, and support in exchange for our military protection. Engineer Kang looked intrigued. What kind of technology are we talking about? Advanced manufacturing techniques, medical knowledge that could extend human lifespans by centuries, and energy systems that would make our current power sources look primitive. Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, he turned back to the Ashanti delegation. Keeper, what is your people's position on all this? You were the first to contact us, and you've seen what we're capable of. The Keeper's crystalline form seemed to brighten. Admiral, my people have made a decision. We wish to formally request membership in whatever alliance you choose to create. We offer our scientific knowledge and our homeworld as a base of operations for future humanitarian missions. You want us to use your world as a military base? Park asked, surprised. We want you to use our world as a center for protecting the innocent. We have learned much about your species in the past few days, Captain Park. You do not conquer for the sake of conquest. You do not destroy for the sake of destruction. You fight only to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Choi looked up from his communication console. Admiral, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth Command. They want a full report on our actions and our current status. Kim sighed. I suppose we need to explain to our own government what we've started here. He turned to the Ashanti delegation. Keeper, we need some time to discuss this with our leadership back on Earth, but I want you to know that humanity is honored by your offer of alliance. Dr. Lee activated the translation equipment one more time. Keeper, there's something I want to ask you. When you first sent out your distress call, did you really believe anyone would come? The Ashanti leader was quiet for a moment before responding. Dr. Lee, we sent that message because it was the only thing we could do. We never truly believed anyone would answer. Most of us thought we would die alone, the last of our kind. But we did answer, Park said quietly. Yes, you did. And in doing so, you have changed not just our fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. Word of what you have done is spreading to every inhabited system. For the first time in galactic history, the Predators know that someone will stand against them. Admiral Kim straightened despite his injuries. Then let's make sure we do this right. Dr. Lee, prepare a comprehensive report for Earth Command. Include everything we've learned about the Ashanti, the Void Hunters, and the galactic political situation. Engineering, he continued. I want a full assessment of what we'll need to establish a permanent presence in this system. Tactical. Begin planning for the defense of Ashanti space and any other systems that request our protection. Park felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. Admiral, we're talking about fundamentally changing humanity's role in the galaxy. Yes, we are. The question is whether we're ready for that responsibility. Keeper Ashanti spoke up one final time. Admiral Kim, Captain Park, if I may offer one last thought. Your species calls Earth a death world because it tried to kill you for millions of years. But perhaps it was not trying to kill you. Perhaps it was trying to prepare you for this moment, when the galaxy would need someone strong enough and brave enough to stand between the innocent and the monsters. Park looked around at his crew, at the alien delegates, and at the stars visible through the viewport. Somewhere out there, other species were watching and waiting to see what humanity would do next. "Well then," he said finally, "I guess we'd better not disappoint them." Outside the ship, the Ashanti homeworld continued its slow rotation. Its crystalline, cities beginning to rebuild under the protection of the human fleet. And across the galaxy, on worlds that had never heard of Earth or humanity, other species began to hope that perhaps they were not as alone as they had believed.